What if I told you that millions of people today cling to beliefs so bizarre they sound like they were dreamed up to test the limits of human credulity? From worshipping cows as divine gods while children starve nearby, to drinking bleach as a holy cure for demons, these aren't just quirky traditions. They're convictions held as sacred truth, sometimes defended with fervor or even violence. Welcome to a journey into the strangest corners of faith, where logic takes a backseat and belief reigns supreme. Why do people embrace ideas that defy reason? Is it fear, community, or something deeper wired into our psyche? Carl Jung once said, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." These beliefs, as absurd as they seem, offer meaning to those who hold them. Whether it's a statue that cries real tears, a pastor who rules the world from heaven, or an alien overlord trapping souls in our bodies. But at what cost? Lives are shaped, laws are written, and suffering is justified, all in the name of stories that crumble under scrutiny. In this video, we'll unravel the most jaw-dropping religious beliefs people follow today, not to mock, but to understand. From rituals that endanger lives to dogmas that rewrite reality, we'll explore how these ideas take root and why they persist. Prepare to be shocked, intrigued, and maybe even a little unsettled. Because the line between faith and folly is thinner than you think. So if you're ready to dive into the strange, the sacred, and the downright surreal, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's unravel the weirdest beliefs humans still cling to today. There's a belief in Scientology that humanity's biggest problem isn't poverty, war, or disease. It's ancient alien spirits stuck in our bodies, called betons. According to the church, 75 million years ago, an alien overlord named Xenu sent billions of people to Earth, stacked them around volcanoes, and blew them up with hydrogen bombs. Their souls now stick to us and cause depression, anxiety, and confusion. The solution? Pay thousands of dollars to take courses and counseling sessions to remove those spirits. This is not some niche idea. Celebrities endorse it. Huge buildings exist for it. People bankrupt themselves over it. Another belief claims the world was created 6,000 years ago. Despite all scientific evidence, fossils, radioactive dating, and astronomy proving otherwise, this belief insists dinosaurs lived with humans, that Noah fit every species on a wooden boat, that a global flood happened, even though there's no geological evidence for it. And this is not just some fringe group. Entire school curriculums in some countries are based on this. There's a Christian sect that drinks poison and plays with venomous snakes during worship. They believe that if your faith is strong enough, no harm will come to you. Unsurprisingly, many of them end up dead or permanently disabled, but they don't see that as a failure. They call it martyrdom, proof that their commitment was real. It doesn't stop others from continuing the same rituals. In Japan, the Aum Shinrikyo cult believed the world was about to end and that their leader could transfer spiritual energy directly into people by simply staring at their photos. Members paid money just to sit near him. They drank his bath water. They believed his bodily fluids could heal diseases. The same cult later carried out the Tokyo subway sarin gas attack, and even then, some followers remained loyal. There's a group in Africa that believes if you sleep with a virgin, you will be cured of HIV. This has led to widespread abuse, especially of young girls. It's not some metaphorical belief. People act on it with real consequences, driven purely by the idea that ritual can override biology. In Brazil, there's a church that believes Coca-Cola and fast food can be turned into holy sacraments. Instead of wine and bread, they use burgers and soda in communion. Their argument is that modern food is a gift from God and therefore sacred. It sounds like satire, but they genuinely believe it, and it's spreading. Some Native American tribes believe that if they danced long enough wearing special garments, they could bring back the dead. The dance was meant to resurrect ancestors, push away colonizers, and restore the old world. The movement was so serious, the US military attacked and killed hundreds at Wounded Knee, fearing it would spark rebellion. But the belief itself, that the dead would rise if the ritual was strong enough, was never questioned by those who practiced it. In parts of Russia and Eastern Europe, some Orthodox sects believe that using modern technology like smartphones or vaccines is demonic. They think electricity is a tool of the devil. They cover mirrors during storms to stop spirits from entering the home. They bury dolls to curse enemies. And many refuse medical treatment, even for children, because they believe God will either heal or take them, nothing in between. In Papua New Guinea, there are tribes who believe white men are gods. Because when colonists first arrived with ships, guns, canned food, and radios, the tribes thought they were divine beings from the sky. Even now, some believe planes will return with gifts from the ancestors. They build fake runways, fake control towers. They march in formation, hoping it will please the sky gods. These are known as cargo cults, and they still exist today. In Italy, there's a belief among some Catholics that the statue of the Virgin Mary literally cries real tears. Scientists have tested these claims and found nothing more than condensation or olive oil, but believers insist it's a miracle. Some travel across the world just to see a small porcelain statue cry, as if tears confirm divinity. In the Philippines, every year during Easter, some believers nail themselves to crosses, not symbolically, literally, with real nails, real blood, and real pain. They think this suffering earns them forgiveness or spiritual rewards. Despite the church itself discouraging the practice, they do it anyway. There's a church in America that believes Donald Trump was chosen by God, not figuratively, but as a modern-day prophet. They believe he speaks divine truth, that his presidency fulfilled biblical prophecy, that questioning him is blasphemy, and that everything from the election to media criticism is part of a satanic attack. They hold prayer meetings not just for God, but for Trump, treating him like a biblical character rather than a politician. In Thailand, there's a cult that worships a man who claims to be the reincarnation of the Buddha. He's overweight, smokes, drinks, and lives in luxury, while his followers give him money. They believe his physical desires don't matter because his spirit is pure. Critics are told they just don't understand enlightenment. In the US, some fundamentalist churches still practice speaking in tongues. They believe gibberish is the language of heaven, that when they start convulsing and mumbling incoherently, it's not a seizure or emotional frenzy, it's divine communication. No one translates it, no one verifies it, but everyone in the room nods and calls it holy. In Africa, some pastors claim to perform miracles by spraying insecticide into people's faces. Others make their congregation eat grass or drink bleach. They claim these acts heal sin or drive out demons. People line up willingly, desperate for salvation, and no government regulation stops them. In some Hasidic Jewish communities, women are forbidden to show their hair, not just in public, but even at home. So they wear wigs made from the hair of other women, sometimes from completely different cultures. It's considered modest, but when you think about it, they're covering their real hair with someone else's hair just to follow a rule that doesn't even exist in any logical sense. It's not about cleanliness or safety, it's purely symbolic and yet enforced with intensity. There are places in the world where menstruating women are considered impure. In Nepal, some are still forced to live in sheds away from their homes during their periods, isolated from family, forbidden from touching water, food, or even animals. Every year, women die from snake bites, cold, or smoke inhalation in these sheds, all because of a belief that menstruation is a curse. In the Mormon Church, it's believed that after death, men can become gods. They'll rule their own planets with multiple wives, populating galaxies like cosmic patriarchs. Women in this system don't get the same reward. Their value lies in eternal childbirth. That's the spiritual future that's promised. Not metaphorically. It's preached literally. Then there's the Amish, who reject most modern technology, but not all of it. The rules are inconsistent. They'll use battery-powered lights, but not electricity from the grid. Some drive cars, others ride in horse-drawn buggies. Some use smartphones secretly. It's not about logic, it's about preserving a lifestyle. But that lifestyle is shaped by leaders who decide arbitrarily what's too modern for God. In South America, some religious groups believe that statues bleed real blood. People gather around sculptures of Jesus or saints that supposedly ooze red liquid from their eyes or wounds. Independent lab tests always debunk them as hoaxes, but the belief stays strong because faith in these cases isn't interested in truth. In the ancient Zoroastrian faith, the dead are not buried or cremated. They are left on towers of silence for vultures to eat. Because the earth and fire are considered sacred and corpses are believed to contaminate them, the tradition continues. In parts of India today, despite sanitation issues, public health concerns, and urban development. In some Islamic traditions, it's believed that every good or bad deed is recorded by invisible angels sitting on your shoulders. One on the right, one on the left. They write down everything. And after death, your soul is judged based on this list. There's no evidence, no possibility of verification, just a belief that everything, including thoughts, is being monitored constantly by unseen beings. In certain Buddhist sects, monks are mummified alive. They go through years of preparation, consuming toxic herbs to dry out the body from the inside. Then, they meditate in a sealed chamber until they die. If their corpse doesn't decay, they're declared a saint, even revered as living Buddhas. It's spiritual suicide for the sake of legacy. Some African tribes worship twins. They believe twins have magical powers. If one twin dies, they create a wooden doll and treat it like the dead child, feeding it, dressing it, and even talking to it as if it's alive, because they believe ignoring the spirit would bring curses to the family. There's a belief in parts of Islam that touching a dog makes you impure, not because of disease or hygiene, but because dogs are considered spiritually dirty. This has led to abuse, abandonment, and fear of animals that could otherwise help communities. Stray dogs are often kicked, avoided, or killed, not because they did anything wrong, but because of an ancient belief that they carry spiritual filth. In some Christian communities, people believe demons are everywhere, in music, movies, clothes, and even hand gestures. They host exorcisms for children, blaming everything from ADHD to autism on demonic possession. These children are sometimes beaten, starved, or isolated, all in the name of saving their souls. In Indonesia, there's a tradition called manin, where families dig up their dead relatives every few years, clean them, redress them, and take photos with them. They believe it maintains a spiritual connection. The corpses are treated like honored guests, despite obvious health risks, and despite decomposition being a clear sign that death is final. There is a cult in Florida that believed their leader was immortal. When she died, they refused to acknowledge it. Her body was left to decompose while her followers prayed for resurrection. The body was eventually found wrapped in Christmas lights, her eyes missing, her skin mummified, but her followers still insisted she was divine. They just said she had ascended to a higher frequency. In Orthodox Christianity, there's a belief that bread and wine literally turn into the body and blood of Jesus during Mass, not symbolically, literally. Scientists have tested consecrated bread. It's still bread. But believers are told to ignore their senses, to accept the transformation as mystical, even when nothing changes. Some sects of Hinduism believe in human reincarnation into animals, that a beggar might be a former king, that a cow might be your grandmother. This leads to contradictions, compassion for some animals, indifference toward human suffering, because it's all seen as the result of past karma. If someone is suffering, it's often believed they deserve it. Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood transfusions even when it means certain death. They believe receiving blood breaks God's law, so children with leukemia, crash victims, mothers during childbirth are sometimes left to die, not because there's no help, but because of a belief about what flows in your veins. In some rural parts of the world, people believe mental illness is caused by curses or spirits. Instead of medical treatment, they turn to faith healers, shamans, or pastors. The result? People with treatable conditions are chained up, beaten, or exorcised, locked away for years, not because they're dangerous, but because belief says they're possessed. The Heaven's Gate cult believed they needed to die to catch a ride on a spaceship. They thought a UFO was hiding behind the Hale-Bopp comet, and that suicide would let their souls ascend. So 39 people took their own lives, lined up in matching clothes with matching sneakers, because a man told them that death was a doorway. There are belief systems that see women as spiritually inferior, where a woman can't lead prayer, can't speak in church, can't enter the temple during menstruation, can't study sacred texts, not because of logic, but because religious doctrine said so and millions go along with it. Some even defend it. There's a Catholic belief that saints' body parts are holy relics. Bones, teeth, blood, even fingernails preserved in glass boxes and kissed by believers. In some cases, multiple churches claim to have the same body part, like 3 different churches claiming they each have the head of the same saint. In Sikhism, men must never cut their hair or beards, even if it gets in the way of work, safety, or hygiene, because the body must remain as God made it. Even though clothes, shoes, and technology are not considered interference, hair, for some reason, is sacred. And yet, despite how absurd all of this sounds, these beliefs are passed down, defended, and treated as truths beyond question, not because of evidence, but because they were taught early, repeated often, and wrapped in fear, community, and ritual. Some beliefs are based entirely on clothing. In Islam, some believe women must cover every inch of their body, including their face. Not because of health, not because of weather, but because a woman's body is seen as a source of sin. For some, even the sound of a woman's voice is considered too tempting. In countries like Iran or Afghanistan, women are beaten or jailed for not dressing according to religious code. And those who enforce the rules, often women themselves, are raised in the same belief system. There's a group in India that believes bathing in the Ganges River washes away sins. The river is considered sacred despite being one of the most polluted in the world, full of chemicals, sewage, and even floating corpses. Yet people travel hundreds of miles to bathe in it, drink from it, submerge their babies in it, even as doctors warn about parasites, hepatitis, and cancer-causing toxins. In Christianity, the concept of original sin teaches that all humans are born guilty because 2 people ate fruit thousands of years ago, and that the only way to be forgiven is to accept a human sacrifice. A man nailed to wood, bleeding to death, who also happens to be God, but also his own son, but not separate. And you have to symbolically eat his flesh and drink his blood every week to be cleansed. These beliefs are taught to children before they can even read. They're told about hell, a place of eternal torture with fire, demons, and suffering that never ends, not for murderers or tyrants, but for people who disbelieve, who ask questions, who are born into the wrong family or culture. And the solution? Submit completely or burn forever. In some African churches, pastors claim to cure infertility by having sex with their female followers. They call it holy cleansing. Some women are pressured into it by their husbands, believing it's a divine act, even when it leads to disease, abuse, or psychological trauma. The belief is that the pastor has been chosen by God, so his touch is sacred. Some tribes in the Amazon believe they can speak to forest spirits through hallucinogenic plants. They take powerful drugs, vomit violently, then enter trance-like states. They say they're speaking with the ancestors, that plants have consciousness, that the jungle whispers secrets. These beliefs influence real decisions: who to marry, who to punish, even who to kill. In certain Orthodox Christian rituals, people believe that kissing the bones of saints brings them blessings. During religious festivals, they parade skeletons around town. People cry, throw flowers, and reach out just to touch the coffin. Even though those bones are hundreds of years old, brittle and meaningless outside the context of belief. There's a cult in Siberia that believes their leader is Jesus Christ reincarnated, a former traffic cop who now lives in the mountains dressed in robes with thousands of followers. They give up their money, families, and sometimes food to be closer to this self-proclaimed Messiah who claims to remember his past life and who dictates everything from diet to dress. In Haiti, voodoo followers believe that spirits called Loa can possess humans. During ceremonies, people fall into trances, speak in strange voices, shake uncontrollably. They believe they're being ridden by a spirit, given divine messages. Sometimes this is celebrated, sometimes feared. Either way, it shapes their lives completely. There are Christian sects that forbid dancing, music, or even laughter because they associate joy with temptation. They believe the body is a gateway to sin, that pleasure is dangerous, that the more you deny yourself, the closer you are to God. So entire communities live without art, without color, without celebration. Some forms of Catholicism teach that suffering is holy, that pain brings you closer to Christ. Some saints whipped themselves, starved themselves, slept on broken glass, or wore chains under their clothes. Modern followers still mimic these practices. They see suffering not as something to escape, but something to embrace. In parts of Asia, there's a belief that ringing temple bells brings good karma. So people gather to ring them over and over, hundreds of times, not because of music or celebration, but because they think the sound echoes into the spiritual world, altering fate. In ancient China, some believed emperors were divine. The mandate of heaven said rulers were chosen by gods, and if they failed, earthquakes or droughts were seen as signs they'd lost divine favor. Decisions about war, agriculture, and law were made based on celestial events. Eclipses and comets weren't just astronomical. They were political messages from the heavens. In Hinduism, it's believed that pouring milk over stone idols brings good fortune. Even during droughts or food shortages, gallons of milk are poured onto statues every day, while children beg for food just outside the temple walls. The milk flows into drains, wasted, but the ritual continues. Some belief systems say that chanting specific words can change reality, that vibrations alone have power, that repeating a phrase 10,000 times can cure disease or change the future. These chants are memorized, repeated mindlessly, sometimes for hours. Not because anyone understands them, but because they were told it works. In parts of Israel, ultra-Orthodox Jews throw rocks at cars driving on the Sabbath because they believe God doesn't want machines used on that day. Even ambulances have been attacked because belief in a rule, a tradition, is more important than someone's life. In ancient Egypt, it was believed that the heart, not the brain, was the center of thought. So they removed the brain during mummification and left the heart intact. The heart would be weighed in the afterlife. If it was lighter than a feather, the soul passed the test. If not, it was eaten by a monster. This determined someone's eternal fate. There's a belief that babies who die before baptism are stuck in limbo. Not heaven, not hell, just floating in an eternal nothingness because they didn't receive a ritual with water, despite never having done anything wrong. Some churches no longer teach this officially, but the fear lingers. There's a belief that some people can speak directly with God, not through prayer, but actual conversations out loud where God gives them advice, opinions, even financial instructions. They claim they're not guessing. They're channeling, hearing voices and acting on them. In many religions, the end of the world is not feared, it's welcomed. They believe destruction will bring salvation, that chaos, war, and disaster are signs of prophecy being fulfilled. Some even hope for war because it means their version of God is coming back. They see suffering as a countdown to something better. There are people today who believe that statues can move, not symbolically but physically. That during moments of high devotion, stone or metal idols will blink, cry, or even bleed. There are entire YouTube channels dedicated to shaky footage of these miracles. But in every case, closer inspection shows condensation, mechanical trickery, or simple illusion. And still, people kneel before them. In some parts of the world, religious leaders sell access to heaven through donations, tithes, or blessings. They claim your financial gifts influence your spiritual fate. Some even hand out certificates of salvation or guarantees of healing. And people buy them, even when they can't afford basic food or medicine, because belief overpowers reason. In South India, there's a belief that walking barefoot across fire or sharp blades will please the gods. Children are sometimes forced into these rituals by their families. Some are injured permanently, but the ritual continues because to question it is seen as dishonor or spiritual betrayal. There's a growing number of movements that claim certain animals are divine messengers, that seeing a particular bird or insect is a sign from the heavens. People plan marriages, business decisions, and even surgeries around the appearance of a lizard, butterfly, or crow. It's treated as cosmic communication, even when it's just nature doing what nature does. In extreme religious schools, students are beaten for asking the wrong questions. They're told that critical thinking is a sin, that logic is dangerous, that doubt is rebellion. Instead of learning science, they memorize scripture word for word, repeating it until it becomes automatic, without understanding, without context, because obedience is more valuable than knowledge. In some traditions, people are told to fast, not for health, but for purification, and not for a few hours, but for days, even weeks. No water, no food. In extreme cases, people have died from dehydration or malnutrition. But the belief is that their souls became lighter, that suffering purifies, even if it kills the body. There are Christian preachers who blame hurricanes on gay marriage, earthquakes on atheism, pandemics on feminism, as if weather and disease are divine punishment for social progress. They ignore climate science, population data, urban development, and say it's all part of a heavenly temper tantrum. There are belief systems where people refuse to say certain words or write the names of deities in full because they believe doing so invites misfortune. So they alter spellings, add symbols, whisper instead of speak, just to avoid divine punishment, as if an all-powerful being would be offended by a syllable. There are sects that reject vaccines because they think disease is God's way of punishing sin, that protecting yourself interferes with divine will. So polio, measles, and even COVID spread more in those communities, not because they're being targeted, but because they refuse basic science. In some Christian denominations, the belief in rapture teaches that one day millions of people will disappear suddenly, their clothes left behind, planes crashing, cars colliding, all because God decided to teleport believers into the sky. This belief influences real politics, environmental policy, foreign relations, because if the world is ending soon, why worry about saving it? There are people who believe that praying over money makes it multiply. They literally wave hands over bills or place cash under Bibles, waiting for it to grow. And when it doesn't, they say it's a test or that their faith wasn't strong enough. So they try again. There's a belief in some Buddhist sects that rubbing the belly of a statue brings prosperity. Tourists and locals rub the same piece of bronze over and over. It's worn smooth from decades of hands, as if touching metal can influence fate. Some Religions believe animals can't have souls, so their suffering doesn't matter. Slaughter is allowed. Pain is irrelevant. Because only humans matter spiritually. This idea justifies cruelty on a massive scale in the name of diet, tradition, or ritual. There are Christian evangelists who claim to raise the dead, who hold revivals, and declare that corpses have come back to life through their prayers. But when pressed for evidence, the stories change, the names disappear, the facts don't hold up, and still the belief survives. In some cultures, eclipses are feared. Pregnant women are told to stay indoors. Children are not allowed to look up. Rituals are performed to protect the earth. Even though the cause is known, mapped, and predicted, the fear lingers because belief ignores knowledge. In various religions, wearing specific colors on specific days is said to bring good luck. Entire wardrobes are built around astrology. People avoid decisions based on lunar cycles, even delay weddings or surgeries, not because of reason, but because a chart said so. Some faiths believe that left-handed people are cursed, possessed, or impure. Children have been forced to write with their right hand, punished for using the wrong side, all because someone centuries ago decided that left equals evil. There are places where disabled people are seen as divine or cursed, either worshipped or hidden away, rarely treated as equals, because belief defines them as spiritual symbols rather than human beings. There are belief systems where numbers are divine, where certain digits are avoided entirely, buildings skip, floors, phone numbers are rejected, based on numerology that has no basis in reality, just tradition wrapped in fear. Some believe relics have healing power, not just holy bones, but clothing, dirt, wood, sold in shops, kept in lockets, placed under pillows. If it touched something sacred, it's seen as magical, even if it's just a mass-produced trinket. There are still people who believe the earth is flat, that the sun revolves around it, that photos from space are fake. And they anchor this belief not in science, but in scripture, because a book written in a pre-scientific age described the world that way. Imagine being told to kill in the name of faith, to strap a bomb to your body, crash a plane into a skyscraper, or even sacrifice your own child. Shockingly, people have done these things not driven by insanity, but by a chilling belief that obedience guarantees eternal reward. These acts reveal a terrifying truth. The most dangerous beliefs aren't just absurd, they're untouchable, shielded by fierce devotion and woven into the fabric of society. What's truly disturbing isn't merely that these beliefs exist. It's how they're defended with unyielding passion, enshrined in laws, etched into political systems, and taught to children as undeniable truth, not metaphor. The real peril lies not in their bizarre content, but in their immunity to scrutiny. They resist evidence, dismiss reason, and demand blind loyalty. Question them, and you risk ostracism, or worse. This isn't just faith, it's dogma, a story hardened by time and power into something sacred beyond reproach. Every outrageous belief started as a spark, an idea, a tale, an interpretation. But with enough repetition and authority, it morphs into an unassailable doctrine. What's revered as divine truth today often becomes tomorrow's folklore, mocked by future generations. Yet while it holds sway, it shapes lives, dictates laws, and inflicts real suffering. From holy wars to ritual sacrifices, these stories drive actions with devastating consequences. The courage to examine them honestly, stripping away fear and inherited reverence, reveals their core. They're just stories, human-made and fallible. Why do we cling to such beliefs? Carl Jung suggested we crave meaning, even at the cost of reason. But at what point does faith become folly? This video challenges you to confront these questions. Subscribe and join us as we unravel the stories that shape our world and dare to see them for what they are. And the more we look at these beliefs honestly, without fear, without inherited reverence, the easier it becomes to see them for what they are. Stories. We want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch the video in its entirety. If you're interested in exploring more topics on spirituality, inner transformation, or mind philosophy, don't forget to subscribe to the Top Hidden Knowledge channel for more content on wisdom, spirituality, and personal growth. Or, if you have time, check out other videos on this channel. Until next time.